Former Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Anthony Akoto Osei, says government must scrap the full implementation of the single spine salary structure and start a massive retrenchment in the public sector.
Everybody knows that our current wage bill is not sustainable, but we don't want to talk about it. First of all, Mr. Minister, I think that we should defer full implementation of the single spine now, not later.
And the old Stafford MP suggested at an economic dialogue organized by the Graphic Group that the government must be bold to reduce the number of public sector employees to save the economy from grinding to a halt. This, he says, is the most practical way of reducing the huge wage bill. This is today's big story. My name is Stephen Anti, and the former Minister of State, Dr. Anthony Akoto Osei, is asking for the suspension of the full implementation of the single spine and a massive retrenchment in the public sector as the surest way of reducing the huge government wage bill. Currently, government spends over 70% of tax revenue on over 650,000 workers in the public sector due to the single spine salary structure. Dr. Akoto Osei wants further implementation of the pay policy to be suspended and renegotiated. Dr. Anthony Akoto Osei now joins us by telephone. Well, we'll be joining him on telephone now, but let's hear what he said earlier today.
Everybody knows that our current wage bill is not sustainable, but we don't want to talk about it. First of all, Mr. Minister, I think that we should defer full implementation of the single spine now, not later. The other components that have not started must be deferred but negotiated. On the 2 and 3 category allowances, those parts cannot be sustained in the next 2 or 3 terms. Second, there are arrears on the wage bill, even with the first part of implementation. The minister should sit down with Labour seriously and tell them that I cannot pay it all. If I pay it all, something must give. So that must also be negotiated. Because now we are looking for almost 2 billion of savings in that area. 2 billion. It's not easy. Currently, it's at 10 if you add social security and pensions and gratuities. Those arrears must be negotiated in a longer term, not this year. The budget cannot contain it. Then the most important thing, I'm sure Seth would want to say it, but some negotiations for retrenchment must begin now. I know government is in discussions with Labour. That wage bill cannot be sustained. Almost 9 billion just on wages. It cannot be sustained. Some negotiation, but it must be credible. If I were the president, I would signal that every ministry must show me 20% of retrenchment in 2015 and 2016. Maybe this year you can't, because this year is almost contractual. But you cannot pay all that you are owing. It's simple as that. Revenue doesn't exist.
Well, Dr. Akoto Osei agreed to speak to us again, and we are making frantic efforts to get him on the telephone line to answer a few more questions over the reasons why he's calling for the suspension of the full implementation of the single spine. But now we're joined on the line by the Secretary General of the Trade Unions Congress, TUC, Kofi Asamoah. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us here on today's big story.
Good evening.
Now, earlier this year or so, there were suggestions from a group of civil societies, including the Minister of Finance himself, that the single spine is not sustainable. So we don't see Dr. Akoto Osei's suggestion that it's not sustainable as anything new, but calling for retrenchment in the public service. Does this sit very well with you?
Okay. Generally in labor relations, every aspect of issues involving the relationship between employer and employee are laid there for discussion. So if for any reason government has the cause to think of the size of public sector workers, yes, it's an open thing that could be brought out for discussion. But I think it's important that government as an employer, before deciding to do anything, really do a proper assessment of whether we have more people than we very much require. If jobs are properly defined in the public sector and there is any reason to discuss those issues, there are issues for negotiation at each time. But for now, nothing has been laid before us with any justification as to, because if it's established that there are more workers in the public sector than we needed, and is followed up with an appropriate justification which sits with all the social partners, yes, we will discuss it.
Well, but I must say that this is not a suggestion that is being made by government. This is a suggestion made by a former Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Dr. Anthony Akoto Osei, who feels that for government to make a savings of up to about 2 billion, there is need to cut back on the workforce in the public service. Now, what I need to find out from you as a representative of the Trade Unions Congress is that now currently there are people enjoying the single spine. Will it be fair, I mean, along the line, to just withdraw the full implementation whilst others have not even started enjoying?
Indeed, if we're talking about suspension of the single spine salary structure altogether, my basic question will be to then say that you suspend it and replace it with what? We can't operate in a vacuum. So if you say you are suspending implementation, you may end up creating more problems if you do not really engage social partners to look for what will be in place instead of suspension. My understanding of what he's saying is that there are implementation challenges. So some aspects of the implementation challenges should be suspended. These are all issues for engagement with the parties to the agreements, to sit down and look out for which areas. And we have almost always been doing it since the implementation began. If you remember, we were all in hope and discussed the future of the single spine, and we concluded that the answer does not lie in suspension. The answer lies in the suspension, the management of the pay policy generally, and to look out for where things have not been done right, and to be corrected. So it's not a new thing. It's just like restating the issues as it were. We acknowledge as labor the implementation challenges, and we are open to really collectively find solution to the problems associated with it, particularly in the issue of the wage bill. It's normally raised without any appropriate issues to substantiate really that the excess is coming from here. And if you recall, labor asked that let's all delve deeper into figures and find out what is the real cost of the implementation of the policy. And will be otherwise, figures are being thrown here and there. Sometimes they say 70, sometimes they say 50. We need to establish what exactly, because repeatedly we have said that the wage bill is not being managed well. It's not being managed well in the sense that there are still ghost names. There are those who are supposed to be paid who are not to be paid. There are those who are covered who are not supposed to be covered. So it calls for an overhaul of the whole wage bill and find out whether the figures that we are peddling out is right or wrong. For us, we still believe that it might not be 70%.
Right. Professor, I'll keep you there. I have on the line, on the other line, Dr. Kwesi Danso Echiampong, who is Deputy Chairperson of the National Labour Commission. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us on today's big story.
Thank you.
So,
let me make correction.
Yes, sir.
I'm no more national wide.
Right. Right. So, what's your current position, sir?
So now I'm a labor consultant.
Right. So, thanks for joining us. Now, the argument now is that Dr. Anthony Akoto Osei was in the government which passed the single spine salary structure into law. And it has been implemented in this new government. So, looking back at the challenges facing the implementation in terms of cost and in terms of its sustainability, do you think the timing is right for him to call for a suspension of the full implementation at this time?
No, for suspension, it's too late. The only thing is that if there are implementation challenges as of today, because for public sector workers, they want further negotiations for more. But insofar as the economy is not run well, they will continue to make further demands on the exchequer. So the point is that they need to call a meeting of the public sector Joint Standing Negotiation Committee, as Kofi Asamoah was talking about, to sit down and then see, can we freeze wage increase for the next 2 years? Okay, so that the government will be able to mop up. And then also, when the government is going
so let's get it right. I mean, you feel that suspension of full implementation is too late, but wage freeze is okay. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. If they sit down with the union at the Public Service Joint Standing Negotiation Committee level, and they bring it out the difficulties they are facing. The point is that in the alternative, the labor will choose reduction, wage freeze to redundancy. But no labor leader will go and sit down and negotiate away its members to be declared redundant.
Right.
And so in the alternative, they may propose that yes, if you are able to manage the microeconomy well, so that inflation and other things will not eat into the little that the people are being paid. For the next 2 years, yes, let's hold the wage as it is. But I think that the best thing the government has to do, if the government there's any retrenchment, it should be done within the political wing of government. Because we have so many ministers and deputies who are doing nothing. And if, like Kofi Asamoah was saying, if you sit down to do the detailed analysis as to where the money is being spent, I'm telling you, those within the public sector through the fair wages as negotiated by the public sector joint standing negotiation will be less than 30%.
So you support the retrenchment, really, but you feel that government appointees, political party appointees in government should be the one who should be chopped off the government wage bill.
That's because most of them have nothing to do. They do nothing, practically nothing. And they enjoy perks. They have bungalows. You see, at the initial stage in the implementation of the things, the intention was for all other perks people were enjoying, free bungalow, free car, free this, all to be consolidated. And then you are paid. Then if you want a watchman, you go and hire a watchman. If you want and that was the initial thinking that went into the drafting of this Essential Spine thing. But it went overboard. So like what Kofi Asamoah is saying, let those who work on it go back to the drawing board and then look at the actual statistics within those who come under Article 182 of the Constitution, the public sector workers who come under the single spine. How many of them at all? The number. And how much is being spent on them. As compared to the political appointees and how much is being spent on them. If they strike the balance, it will reveal to you that those who come under the trade unions and other things will be taking about 30% of what they are calling 70%.
Right, Mr. Danso Champor, I'll have you hold. I'll go back to Kofi Asamoah and Dr. Kofi Asamoah. I don't know whether to refer you as doctor, which I know you duly are. But now the issue really is that if we look at the problems that have come back and forth with the implementation of the single spine salary structure, does it occur to you that the initial starting point, there was an error from that starting point, that systems were not put in place to ensure the smooth implementation? Because if at this stage some other individuals who play key role in its drafting and passage into law are calling for its suspension, something must definitely have been wrong from the beginning. Do you think so?
No, I do not want to believe that. Apparently, our social partners were all involved from the very beginning up to now. It's a different thing developing the legal framework. Is that another thing also placing people onto the fine, and as it keeps increasing, the size also gets bigger and bigger. We in labor acknowledges the fact that yes, the cost is becoming huge. Now, we have always stated that our doors are open. We are prepared to sit down and look deep into what is in the wage bill. In fact, as we sit here, public sector workers are not even satisfied with the level of pay individuals are taking. You know, when you do a salary rationalization, it is not a pay increase for everybody. Some people had their salaries doubled. Some have their salaries increased by half. Some had their salary increased by a third. Others did not even get any increase, which means then that they might have been earning more than what they should have earned. So it's not a pay increase across board. Of course, I concede that there's been some substantial increases to workers since the implementation. Going further, there is a need to do a full assessment of the structure. Because sincerely, we have been almost repeatedly stating to government that the problem is the management of the wage bill. Who engages who? Who in what is the level of human resource management within the public sector? If you go to the sectors of the economy, how are people engaged? Who controls what? Because we know for a fact that sometimes engagements are done without recourse to lay down procedures in the public sector. So if somebody somewhere is still adding to the numbers, if somebody somewhere is also increasing by virtue of appointees, you cannot just wake up and blame everybody to say that the wage bill is big. We are very much prepared to sit. And as we did at Ho, we all went to Ho with the understanding to find out what the problem it is with the wage bill. We concluded that the issue is not to have a U-turn on the implementation. The issue is to make sure that the anomalies associated with the management of the wage bill should be looked at. You remember we talked about ghost names. There are still ghost names. We have cause to think that there are people who have been put on the wage bill who are not supposed to be on the wage bill. So until the wage bill is managed efficiently for us to know who is there, is he supposed to be on the wage bill? How come that people are being kept? And as my friend
but what about those who are there? They're supposed to be there, but they're not productive. I mean, they're not delivering to the levels they're being paid.
Now, if you say somebody, no, workers operate under a kind of a work system. So if you are managing a place and people can go to work without working, then you are not an efficient manager. I think the work system should be organized in a way that people will go to work and work. Then it means there's a problem over the whole public sector in terms of how jobs are defined and then the systems are managed. And it is not a matter of, because workers are not employing themselves. We have collectively sat down to say that let's look at other areas where the problems are. And if it's not tackled, figures are being bundled. Sometimes they say 70%. The 70%, they included arrears from 2010. Arrears are for a specific period. After paying the arrears, does it still become part of your salary wage bill?
No,
so there are more than just peddling figures around. We need to do a full scrutiny into the public sector wage bill, find out, because it's not only ordinary public sector workers who are on the wage bill. There are all other factors pushed on the wage bill. Let's disaggregate it and find out what the real problem is. If the problem is laid bare, which public sector workers and their leaders are aware of, we are matured enough to discuss how to deal with it. But it's like we are bemoaning the problem. We always say there is so much figures. Some of the figures are not substantiated. Who and who are there? Who authorizes payment? Who engages? Because we are told, even as we sit down, more numbers are being added to the public, the strength of the public sector. So who is causing the wage bill increase?
Right. So let me come back to you, Kwesi Danswe Champong. So where you stand and the arguments that Kofi Asamoah is making, that at the forum, at the consultative forum, it was agreed that the way forward is not a U-turn on the single spine. Will it surprise you if you wake up one morning and government has decided to totally scrap the full implementation of the single spine salary structure and moving on, implement other means of remuneration?
No, they can't do that. It will be completely inconsistent with law. And we are in a democratic system. The trade unions are entrenched by the Constitution. They are supposed to negotiate under a collective agreement. The public sector, the public service joint standing negotiation is by law. The body that sits down and signs with the government the fair wages as to the conditions of service. Once it's been signed, nobody can use ordinary law and say from tomorrow going, I scrapped it. They need to go back to the drawing table. The Fair Wages Commission, backed by the government and with all the statistics that they want to, and then meet the trade union leaders so that they will go there and be transparent, let them know exactly what goes into the wage bill. If they are able to do that and find out that, yes, those who come under the public Service Joint Standing Negotiation Committee are taking 70%, and therefore there's a need for us to do some sacrifices. The leadership are mature. They've been in the system. They know they will come on board and meet the government halfway. But the whole thing should not be shrouded in secrecy. But like Kofi was saying, people are being added onto the public sector. But it's a political game. Okay. So if you add the people more, there are people who have been employed last 2 years whose name have not appeared on the payroll yet. So the only thing is that they need to go back and discuss it. But the onus is on the government, because I believe sincerely that the wage bill has been quadrupled by a number of government political appointees who are drawing money from the consolidated fund. It's as simple as that. And the government should be transparent on it, bring all the people they are paying, how much each of them is earning. And then also we need to do audit of some of the institutions. There are too many, duplications in the system. You get it?
Yes.
You have a whole lot of Council of State members, about 20-something. They were supposed to be advising the president. Meanwhile, the president also has a pool of advisors who are advising him on what?
And a pool of presidential staffers as well.
Yes, and therefore we need to look at it. Is it even worth to maintain the Council of State today in a political system where people operate under their own manifesto and other things? If we don't need it, let's scrap it.
Mr. Kasechabo, whilst we are at it, whilst we're trying to find a way out of streamlining the government wage bill and reducing the enormity of it, there is the huge challenge of youth unemployment. So we're trying to tackle wage issues, but we're not also bearing in mind that there is unemployment in the system. How do we juggle the two? Streamlining wages and making sure young graduates who leave school are getting jobs?
The solution is that the public sector should not be the place for the CUNY youth who are coming on. Now we have over almost 60 private universities in addition to the public one. So if, like you're saying, if we don't sit down to deal objectively with the problem that we have on hand, within the next 10 years, we're going to have a very serious problem on our hands. It's the private sector that develops, where a chunk of these young men who are coming out with various degrees in science and that can be employed. For the public sector, if you push all of them there, they will be earning, but it will not bring out the productivity that we need to move the nation forward. So I agree with you. We have the mass unemployment on our hands, but the way forward to deal with that is to macro-manage the economy in such a way that the private sector will begin to be the proper engine of growth that will grow to employ, as the government also deals with other big sectors that private sectors will not easily go in, and then start them off either in the private public partnership.
Right.
making me move forward.
Yeah, right. So let me switch back to Kofi Asamoah and wrap up with you. So Kofi Asamoah, you've been hearing Mr. Kweku Danso-Acheampong on all the issues that we've been discussing. Now, key issue is youth unemployment. There is a problem of unemployment, graduate unemployment, and then there is a problem of streamlining government wage bill. What must we do right in order to get the balance between these two problems?
You know, government has the responsibility of ensuring that it provides jobs and job security for everybody in this country. And in so doing, as manager of the economy, it's supposed to create a conducive situation which will ensure that local industry and all other avenues for employment creation is made to work well. If the economy is not managed well, that challenge will be there. I agree with you that the level of youth unemployment that we have is a time bomb. It needed to be managed very well. In the same vein, we are not saying that people who are not working who are really in the public sector and are not really doing anything should be paid. The difficulty have been the human resource administration in the public sector. Some of us have the feeling that it is not efficient enough to be able to deal with that. Salary administration is not done in the pay office. It's done where human resource people deal with each specific section, the numbers there, and how it's linked up to the total cost, as it were. I'm saying that there's not been an attempt to harmonize the system in a way to be able to check wrong figures that gets into it. Government, yes, has a responsibility to create jobs, and we will encourage government to do that thing as much as possible. There are very creative and innovative ways that government, as the manager of the economy, would have to do that. You need to get resources. Right. If the resources are wasted, if there is enough waste in the system, and the resources the little that we have are not managed well, you will not be able to cope with this challenge. But we are not in any way saying that because of wage bill, we should ignore a solution to the huge unemployment that we have.
Right, so,
government should be innovative enough and push everybody along into kind of programs that can really be able to solve the problem ahead of us.
Right, so quickly, finally, I need to ask you, let's put on record, suspending the single spine salary structure is not the way forward.
For me, the question is that you suspend it and replace it with what? If you don't have what to replace with it, you create chaos. Chaos. If you say you are suspending it. You can't worsen workers' conditions of service at a point in time. So we need to really spend time let's be very innovative and then manage the wage bill now, manage the current problem. It's so manageable. We think that the issue is not to suspend, because you can't operate in a vacuum. You are going to suspend it, and then what are you going to use? All other things will have to be put on the table for the social partners to exhaustively discuss and find solutions.
Thank you very much to UC General Secretary Kofi Asamoah, and thanks very much Labour Consultant Kweku Danso-Acheampong. My name is Stephen Ante, and that's how we wrap for today's big story. We'll take a break, and when we return, it will be time for the interactive segment. Stay with us. Well, it's now time for the interactive segment, and Gladys is here. Gladys.
Thank you, Steve. I'll go straight to the issue we have for today. Thanks for joining us on Interactive. 15 students to 3 fish at the secondary school for the death. My name is Gladys Osei Already. You can join us through our social media platforms, facebook.com/joynewsontv. Send us a tweet to twitter.com/joynewsontv. And the handles are at joynewsontv and #JNInteractiveGH. Email us via joynewsim@multitvworld.com. So today we are discussing feeding for special schools. Well, so special schools are allocated 2 cedis, 20 pesos a day. Well, unfortunately, the allowance delays for several months. We shall be delving into this issue as we go on. But let's quickly appreciate the situation at hand. Well, so headmaster of the secondary school for the dead, Oti Frimpong, also has been sharing his difficulties with us, as well as the matron of the school, Marian Ampia, who says it takes magic to feed the children 3 times daily.
Just some few weeks ago, the arrears for last term came, and I have to use those monies to pay the creditors, simply because if you want to have an affair with an old lady, you have to constantly give him money. Otherwise, when you go there, he will not mind you. So you have to pay off your some of the debts of your creditors, the debts of the creditors, so that you can go to them and then they continue to give you my food to feed the children. That is exactly what I did.
So have you finished paying all your debts?
No, we couldn't pay all of them simply because we were short of 7,100 Ghana cedis.
Just by God's grace, because it's a very difficult situation, considering the prices of things right now in the market. And you having to feed these kids on such a meager amount. It takes grace to be able to do it. So as women, when we get into the kitchen, we try to add 1 and 2 to be able to put something on the table for the children. We work magic there, because you can just imagine that you yourself, as you're asking, you know the situation that is on the ground right now, even at home. How are you going to feed a small child, even on 5 cedis?
So now we have a good appreciation of the issue. So keep your comments coming through to Facebook, to WhatsApp, and we'll be sharing that here. But in scoping this issue, the newsroom was sharply divided over the issue. Some argued that it was a normal issue, whilst others argued that it should not be the case. But before I bring you the debate that happened in the newsroom, we quickly would go online and talk to Charles Abe, the program officer of the African Development Program, ADP. ADP is very much interested in special school grants, and we have him online going to talk to us about the issue. Thank you so much, Charles, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so what do you make out of the allowance given to special schools, 2 cedis 20 pesos a day for 3 meals?
Good evening to all your cherished viewers. I must say that, like some of your text messages that should be coming through already to you, it is a rather sorry situation, and as a country, we need to bow our heads in shame. Why do I say that? How much can you do with 2 cedis 20 pesos to feed a child? We are not talking about an abled child. We are talking of a disabled child.
And to the extent that we as a country still are lacking behind in prioritizing the needs of the vulnerable and less privileged society, we cannot be proud of this as an achievement.
Exactly. Sure. Well, so you have called on government to disburse funds on time, but it has not happened. What really is the problem?
You see, I think that it's about time we hold institutions accountable and responsible for their actions. These 30-plus special schools in Ghana, with children numbering about 15,000, are schools that, like you know, do not charge school fees like the mainstream schools. They depend solely on the subventions of the central government. Now you have a special education division under the Ministry of Education that is supposed to be the parent or oversight body for these schools. And so one would expect that once their issues are properly articulated by such a body, it shouldn't take ages for their subventions to be released then. It would interest you to know that this issue that is plaguing the secondary school for the deaf is something that is a reflection of the situation across the country. Go to the Garden City for the intellectually disabled, you find same. Go to War School for the blind, you find same. Indeed, as at 2 weeks ago, the feeding grant for the 2013, this new term in which they are now, it is the arrears of the last term feeding grant that was released then. So it is almost the case that every time there are arrears. And it is like we don't have a decisive approach to deal with the issue, but rather a piecemeal. Last year, multimedia, and kudos to you guys and ADP, amplified these issues, and then quickly, as usual of our firefighting approach, government went ahead to release some funds to them. But that's not all that they depend on. They need the administrative grant as well so they can cater for the teaching and learning materials. And that is where you realize that even among these special schools, they have different needs. For instance, a child schooling in the Garden City School for the intellectually disabled is different from the one schooling in the secondary school for the deaf. Why? That child in Kumasi does not sit for the BEC. No. His is to improve upon his cognitive ability. So if you want to teach the child about tomatoes, if you want to teach the child about onions, you've got to give an example. Show him the tomatoes, show him the onion. Are you getting the picture?
I'm getting that.
But here is the case, the teaching and learning materials, the subvention that is needed to even acquire these things are lacking. Even you know, a school bus to convey students up and down, it's a challenge. And in one particular school, I don't want to mention the name, the school authorities were proactive enough to mobilize the teachers and the parents, and they were like, look, this is our situation. Can we find a way of even you, the parents, giving us something little, if it's even 2 CDs or 5 CDs, so that we can use it to support it? Because obviously there is some form of neglect, I should say, from you know the special education unit. But guess what happened after that meeting? Some parents withdrew their awards.
Oh, I see. Why would they?
Why would they? Because already the parents has not come to the realization that, yes, although my child is a disabled child, he's still a human being and is entitled to all the fundamental human rights as enshrined in the Constitution and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Many of the parents think that, well, let's write off our children because, I mean, after all, what good can come out of them? But when parents see this situation and want to act in such a manner, you know, it even demotivates the teachers who are working in these institutions.
Exactly.
And so for me and for us in African Development Program, we are saying that, yes, not only does government have a role to play, but families and society have a role to play. And so, for instance, if you are a parent with a disabled child, yes, indeed, central government has a role to play, but you have a responsibility. Society has a responsibility. And it's about time as a society, we do not wait for Christmas events and special locations where we now want to show our love to some of these people.
Yeah.
Every day for these people are days that they look forward to the benevolence of institutions. So in January, ADP conducted a needs assessment of the Garden City Special School. And we want to place on record the good support the Tool for Education Fund is giving to such schools. I mean, we went in to, mobilize some food resources to support such a school. And we think that such acts are commendable. But that does not discount the role of central government, particularly the Special Education Division and the Ministry of Education. That is why for us as a CSO, we found it quite intriguing that when we're having issues with the city depreciation, the Ministry of Education rather saw its prudence to be policing schools that were charging fees in dollars when the needs of these special schools have been a perennial crisis on our hands. And we have not brought closer to the issues.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. We really do hope that central government come to the aid of these children and get the issue straightened out. 2 cedis 20 pesos a day for 3. We can't even call it 3 square meal. It's really pathetic. Well, so in scoping the issue, we had our own debate in our newsroom. Some argued that it was normal. Some also thought that this is not on. Let's quickly go to the newsroom and see how the whole argument went.
The morning, the early morning, 40% and 50% for 40%. That is 90%. And then the afternoon, 50%, fish 50%. Which is very unlikely. Very unlikely. Very, very unlikely to get 50% fish. 1 cedi gone. So we are left with 30%. And you wonder what the person can do with it. Even sugar, even if it's the evening, he decides to eat gari.
No, even if he decides to buy sugar and put it in water and drink.
You have to buy sugar 20%, but I'm almost sure.
And sachet water 10%.
Sachet water 20%.
It's not 20%.
They say 15%, but
they never get change for you.
Yeah, they never get
so it can't even get sugar solution.
You know. And which means that in the morning when you eat, you don't have to drink water. In the afternoon, don't drink water. So you save the water money to buy what?
Sugar water.
Sugar water.
For dinner.
In Canada. Tray. People hold tray and go and take food. Is it like that or it's not like that?
It's not like that. It depends which school you go to.
Okay.
But some schools, what they do is in the morning, they'll have like a breakfast program for kids with low income. So they can go there, they eat, they get like maybe some bread, some protein and a drink, and then they're good for the day. And then when it's lunchtime...
Did she mention protein?
Yes.
Oh no,
that's the best practice.
Really?
All of those kids who get no food to eat. Why are we doing this job? Why are we doing this job? Why are we talking for?
But do we want to change that reality?
If we are saying that, maybe you should put out of it, maybe you should put this one at the scene and cry and we are getting off people's days. No.
Those who run to the house.
We do our stories for them too. We do our stories for them too.
With plantains taking out.
There's no addition of saying it. Why should it be so?
About the reality on the ground.
Why should it be so?
That's the question.
Right, so it definitely is highly debatable. 2 cedis 20 pesos, I keep stressing on that figure. Well, let's quickly hear what you also have for us on WhatsApp. What have you been saying on our WhatsApp? So quickly, let's look at the first person, Bernard Kwame, who says it's due to incompetency of those steering the affairs of the program. Okay, thank you, Bernard, for contributing. Seth Apple, PSC, says, so is this Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana? This is so pathetic. Wow, it's really pathetic. Rembrandt says, oh, Ghana, this is not fair. That's coming from Rembrandt Kwesi. Kwesi K says, NGO, please help them because the government has no money. How do you know that, Kwesi K? Ofariata says, the problem in Ghana here is that checks and balances is not working, and most of the leaders are, excuse me to say, cold-hearted. It looks like that. Richard Belly says, what a story. I'm seriously weeping for them. God help them. They really need our support whichever way. Ketia Ishmael says, it's very unfortunate. It's amazing how fat salaries of the president and his appointees do not delay, but the small peanuts meant for the needy and vulnerable is always delayed. God have mercy. That's coming from Inketia Ismail. Kulo Isa says, this is barbaric. It is not supposed to be so. The head teacher should be arrested and apprehended for cheating students from their feeding. He didn't sound so well. Kudos to Mike says, everything about special school must be special. They should enjoy the best foods, clothes, and shelter. Refusing to release their capitation on time is stigmatization. Okay, so it's stigmatizing them in advance. We must all try to do our best to help them. Kudos. Thank you. Majid says it's not better for the school to stop till they get enough. This is an insult to the students. That's coming from Majid Nambe. An insult to the students at the Takrady School of Death who are given 2 cedis 20 pesewas, and even that it delays, it does not come on time, and so by magic, well, we call it miracle feeding. So miraculously they get to eat at least some meals from morning till evening, and you saw a big ball of kinky going with. I think that child who got the fish head really must have been the very luckiest child there. Well, so let's quickly get onto Facebook and see what you have also been telling us on Facebook. So as usual, you have been sharing your thoughts with us on Facebook. And Vital says, oh my country. Kwesi K says, Gladys, Guru said it all. Nana Nyame, amen. Boys are bro, amen. Any fish back up penna yecho, amen. Say yes to Frewa, amen. Tien. NGOs, please help them because the government has no money. Unfortunately, I couldn't read the tree well, so but I hope you made some sense there. Princess says, OMG. Oforiata says, the problem in Ghana here is that checks and balances do not work. You said the same thing on WhatsApp for us. Let me just scroll down quickly and see. Ebenezer Asare says, oh my God, Ghana is in a mess. Everything is against us. Ow. President Mahama should solve our problems and stop the promises. Is this the better Ghana we were promised? Wise Apusiga says, you are laughing, one fish pa. I hope this is a pathetic laughter, not that one that excites you. Frimpong Holy John O.C. says, oh, what a pity. The authorities shouldn't forget these people are part of the populace that they will be going to seek their votes in the near future. God have mercy upon us all. Samora says, our institutions are just not working. Square pegs are put in round holes. Capitation grants, school feeding program, get fund are all collapsing. Why should this happen? Yet they promise free education. Nice question there. Affiliate Benjamin says, 2 cedis, is this money for Kelewele? You can't do efficiency. Even this money is released on time, 100 fingers through whom this money will pass will leak hands, DH. Puto. McDonald says, you see, the school teachers should be blamed and not persons responsible for release of feeding grants. They waited till everything got finished before the noise is now heard, just because they want to make this government unpopular. Can you imagine? Cheer! Nuruddin says, it's so heartless. Afza Buhari says, at 57, this is still happening. Oh, Allah, come down for our rescue. Kafui Ket Stanley says, oh, what a Ghana. But we are not enjoying this miserable and hopeless nation. A nation with a symbol of hope? No, no, no. Andy Fidad Estrada says, care about one another, community volunteers, everyone pull together and help these schools. Nana Ansah said, instead of setting a committee on this issue, they rather set committee on teachers' absenteeism. How can 3 students share a fish? Please, our natural resources must be used in areas like this. Ankama Andrew says, oh my God, too sad to hear that. What country are we living in? Millions are wasted on MPs and MCEs and DCEs for their poor services. God have mercy on us. Yaya says, too bad. Abdulaziz Wanzi says, wow, look, we call ourselves, okay, so you mean, wow, look, we call ourselves independent country. Okay. Arthur says, better Ghana agenda. It's a big, you shouldn't be promoting this one. Atopili Martin Selim says, wow, this is amazing and unheard of. So all these issues are albatrosses around our necks, yet these two political parties claim they have done everything possible in making life so enjoyable for our special students of this country. What at all is this? Al-Hassan Sumani Jr. says, I wonder what the government is doing about this situation. The government should try its possible best to release feeding grants on time to help save these young deaf students. Ahiyamazi Felix says, where are the authorities? What are they saying about this? Maybe for all you know, somebody somewhere is sitting on the mega allowances made for the students. Please, media, investigate them well. We'll be doing exactly that. I'm here, Mazi Felix. Atanga Maxwell says, oh my God, this is really disheartening. I think government should consider taxing religious bodies like the churches and mosques so that the funds generated are used in taking care of the needs of special persons like the deaf and dumb, the blind, prisoners, etc. And I believe they will all be willing to pay such taxes provided those monies generated will get to their ultimate targeted beneficiaries. After all, every religion preaches the need to give out to charity and alms. A lie? You know the lie at all. Let me take my final one and then we quickly would be wrapping up. Samuel Insia says, this is very pathetic. Western region is richly endowed with different natural resources. I think the various companies in Western region should be mandated to contribute to such social interventions. So that's coming from Samuel Insia. All right, so George Alonso Kweku Yebua says, the problem with special education is not feeding allowances. The facilities are not there in the first place. My 6-year-old son is autistic. We live in Ho. Can anyone tell me if there is a single school in the Volta region to alleviate the suffering of parents whose children are neurologically challenged? Our governments have not been fair at all to us in this regard. We need help. We cannot do it without government support. Eric GH says, oh, what kind of government we have? Incompetent government? Cheer. Well, Mumpini says, all we need to do as a people is to fear Allah and let those benefits get to them, especially those in charge. Ilyasu says, Washe, these supposed funds are adequate, yet there's a delay, inadequate, yet there's a delay in its release. Two troubles, one God. It is not only feeding of special schools that are delayed. There are reported cases of similar incidents of SHS in the north. Nothing is going on well. Everything is haywire. God save us. And so let me just take Fifi's own. God help Ghana. Budgeting $20 million for just a single tournament, and your people are suffering. What a world are we living in? Of course, we say it's not. Life is not fair. Well, we hope. We really do hope sincerely that we have aid going to that school and similar schools in such situation. We had been trying to reach the special education unit to also seek their reaction to that a bit, go a bit into it and find out what exactly the problem could be. But tried as we did, we never could get them to talk to. We hope to get them to talk to in our subsequent bulletin to sort it out. Steve?
Gladys, interactive segment. It's pathetic when you hear that people go to school and 5 of them have to share one fish. It's sad.
It's sad. It's not even a big fish. One tiny manla size.
I'm just sad about it. But anyway, stories to expect on News at 8. Police in Ashanti region say they will embark on continuous and aggressive law enforcement in the region to reduce crime rates there. The regional commander is therefore asking all law-abiding citizens to assist the police by volunteering information about criminals.
All right, so still on 8, we shall also be telling you about the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, GREDA, which says the only way out of the current 1.7 million housing deficit in the country is for government to provide local real estate developers with lands at no cost to enable them put up real affordable houses for Ghanaians.
That's it for Interactive segment. My name is Stephen Anti.
My name is Gladys Osei Oredu. We say thank you for your time.
And thanks for your time. Good evening.